Yeah, sure, there's werewolves striking, but if you've got Frank Grillo and a ton of weapons, you'll be fine. Werewolves is set 1 year after a supermoon caused worldwide werewolf chaos for a night, and now it's the 2nd year of the supermoon, so they're all preparing like it's the Purge, but for wolves. So it makes sense Frank Grillo is there. He could have been playing the same character from the Purge movies. The movie starts like it's a sequel to a non-existent film, or like the 2nd season of a show. The opening moments feel like a previously on segment. There's a lot of stuff that works in it. It's hard to totally go wrong with a movie where Frank Grillo kills a bunch of werewolves, plus they use a lot of practical effects work that's really cool to see. But there's little problems that do kinda add up to a lot. There's some pretty big distractions here, mainly all the lens flares that go way overboard. It's been a long time since I've seen lens flares this out of control. There's also a lot of action scenes with strobing effects and also lights dimming in and out, and I actually was getting a little nauseous watching some of that. There's some silliness in the final act too, particularly in the last few minutes. It's not a bad film, it's just a whole movie that feels like an extended climax of something else, and aside from Grillo, the characters aren't that interesting, and they've got some bad lines every now and then. If I was watching it on VOD, I'd come away thinking, well, that was alright, but in theaters, it's more of a C+. Even with its flaws, it's never boring. So I think if it's one you watched at home, you might get some enjoyment out of it. But forget werewolves returning. What happens when Ralph Fiennes returns with a bow and arrow? In The Return, the Queen is practically being held hostage by a gang of power-hungry creeps around her who are demanding that she choose a new king after her husband supposedly died in battle, but then King Odysseus himself washes up to the shore, rendered unrecognizable from war, and sees how far his land has fallen. The movie's a mixed bag. There's a lot going on here, to where in the first act, it feels like there's another movie going on that Ralph Fiennes was just spliced into. It isn't actually that, it just seemed like it with the pacing. The more he does come into it though, the more his scenes work, and it's cool seeing him and Juliette Binoche together again. Sometimes it'll have an interesting scene, then other times it looks like a period piece faith-based movie or a TV pilot for a show on the History Channel. It strips down a lot of the fantastical elements from the Odyssey to make the story more grounded, but in doing so, it actually renders it kind of a slog. It plods along for 2 hours, pretty much just killing time, when it feels like it could have been told in an hour. That said, it has a very good last 30 minutes. There's a particularly great scene with him and a bow and arrow, and it almost makes up for the first 90 minutes where I was mainly distracted by some of the hairstyles, like one guy looking like he's on his way to a rockin' flock of seagulls cut. It was just a flat C, nothing terrible, nothing great, but man, I do like the last act. Thanks for watching, and if you're interested in a pre-order of the ebook edition of my new book, then click on the links in the comments and in the description, and we'll see you next time.